Welcome to this week's Closing the Distance. On today's show, we're out here in the woods. We're looking at all these oak trees, trying to figure out how to hunt all these acorns that are on the ground. A lot of information, some pretty cool footage. Let's get started.
Closing the Distance is brought to you by Matthews Solo Cam. Catch us if you can. Ozonics, scent control that works. Hunter Safety System, dedicated to saving hunters' lives. Executioner Broadheads, born to kill. And by Citadel, revolutionary shoot-down shape. Today we'll share valuable tips on hunting when the oak trees are loaded with acorns. Closing the Distance will be right back.
It's simple. Learning stand placement drastically increases your odds, but hunters are unintentionally making errors while scouting and hanging stands. We examined these problems and found the solutions to these hunting challenges, and we're pleased to share this information with you. Stand Placement is a new DVD that answers these questions. Available online only at closingthedistance.com. That's closingthedistance.com. Order your copy today and learn the secrets of consistently harvesting trophy bucks.
The 3 biggest mistakes in shot placement today. Bow hunters are unintentionally making errors while taking aim. We studied these problems and identified the solutions to these challenges. We are pleased to share this information with you. Available to you free of charge. Shot Placement 101 is a DVD that answers these important questions. Just log on to closingthedistance.com to see how to order. That's closingthedistance.com.
Closing the Distance is made possible by Carbon Express Arrow. Shoot better. Shoot Carbon Express. Christian Bow Hunters of America, exalting Christ as Creator, Savior, and Lord. Nikon, the trusted name in optics. Sword Sights, sharp solutions in aiming. Elusive Wildlife Technologies, taking the elusive out of wildlife. And by the amazing Luminaut. Can your arrow not do this?
Here's an oak species that I want to introduce you to. You may have not even heard of this one before. It's called a sandjack oak. And a sandjack gets its name, it's just here in the south, and it has to be on really, really sandy soil. When I mean sandy soil, more like beach sand. It grows in a real dry climate. The tree doesn't get very big at all. If you find one that's even 30 or 40 foot tall, that's a big one. I even think that maybe our state record may even be 50 foot, but it doesn't get very big. Very slow growing. But the acorn that it produces, deer just crave. I've never even seen one at a nursery to sell that you would buy to plant because they're such a slow growing oak. But there may be out there, you can check around, but the acorn is phenomenal. The deer will eat the sandjack. They'll walk over any other acorn that I know of to eat a sandjack. And they produce acorns sometimes every other year, maybe every third year. But when they do, it's usually a bumper crop. Some of those scattered years, they have average amount of acorns, but when those bumper years hit, when the weather's right, we don't get that late frost in the south, they have a great, great acorn. And here's one right here. You can tell how small this one is, and that tree right there could easily be 30 or 40 years old. But you can just see how short that it gets. And this is what the acorn looks like. It's an average size acorn, kind of a purple blackish tint to it. Very palatable. Deer love it. And this wasn't a bumper year this year for the sandjacks. I have a few sandjacks in my yard. They get fertilized every year, and they produce acorns almost every year because they get the extra special fertilize. But a small tree, if you can find some on your ground, fertilize them. They grow slow, but that fertilizer, I guarantee you, will help them. If there was such a thing as acorn heaven, well, it would be the hill country in Texas. Those live oaks, when they're loaded, acorns are everywhere, and it makes hunting really, really tough. But if you find those years where the acorns are sparse and they're scattered, and you can find just pockets that are dropping, the hunting can be phenomenal. Pro staffer Chad Stevenson, he's set up. He's found a spot that the acorns are dropping. And when you find a spot like this that's loaded, get ready to see deer early in the afternoon. Deer feel comfortable coming in to these spots. But the bucks, the big bucks in particular, you seldom if ever see those deer to right at dark. A lot of times they just stage up 50, 60, 100 yards out, smelling the deer. They're downwind, they're just smelling of the deer that are in the area. And usually right at dark, those bucks come in. Oh, that's a great sign right there. Man, he shouldn't be far. What a deer. Oh man, golly. Look at that. What a stud. Man, that was an exciting hunt. That mature deer just kind of emerged out of the woods right at last light. Exactly what you dream of, you know, when you're back home and working, laying in bed at night in hopes of a deer like this. And it happened tonight. Oh man, that is great. What a beautiful animal. Man, I couldn't be happier. What a hunt, man. That was great.
After the break, pro staffer Chub Clemens hunts an acorn flat along the Trinity River. Plus, learn tips on finding the right acorn tree to hunt. Closing the Distance will be right back.
This is the Citadel Shootdown. Thanks to its unique, space-maximizing shape and angled openings, it's the only tower stand that allows bow hunters to shoot down. This is critical for close-range bow hunting shots. The tapered shape is also draw-friendly and limits silhouetting because the windows are not in line. And Citadel's center swivel seating allows for 360-degree shooting. The Citadel Shootdown, the bow hunter's tower stand.
Closing the Distance is proudly supported by Whitetails Unlimited, working for an American tradition. Real World Wildlife Seed, dare to compare. And by Fish and Still Equipment, your East Texas John Deere dealer.
When you're set up in areas like this where there's multiple oak trees that are dropping acorns, be ready to call in a deer. Be ready to use your binoculars to spot a deer at a distance. Be ready to get your grunt call and get them in close to you. Because so many times in areas like this, deer don't come in and out of these hardwood flats the same place every day. They're traveling, they're working scrapes, they're looking for does. And when you see them, you gotta be ready, and you gotta be ready in an instant to grab that grunt call, to tickle those horns. It can make for a fun hunt.
And we've been seeing lots of bucks. The river bottoms flooded, and they're up here in the hills running around chasing acorns and chasing does. It's late October. As you can see the mosquitoes are bad, but the deer are moving. We saw 5 or 6 nice bucks this morning pursuing one hot doe. And we were able to call this one in with a grunt call and get a good shot on him. He's a pretty deer.
Another acorn tip that I learned, if you're on really good deer sign and you're hunting acorns, and all of a sudden the deer leave, but you still have acorns on the ground. And it's, for example, a red oak species, and you've got red oaks everywhere, and the deer leave. Almost always, and at 99% of the time, I can guarantee you that a different species of oak are starting to drop. Because you always got to remember that deer, just because it's an acorn doesn't mean that they like it. They will eat it, they will tolerate it, and you have to know those different species in the area that you hunt. And every area is different. For our area, for an example, the water oak here in the south usually drops first. It may start dropping acorns in September, early October, but as soon as the red oaks start dropping next in our area, the deer will walk through a stand of water oaks to get to a red oak to eat those. But the red oaks don't last long. It's not preferred, but they're preferred over water oak. And then the next thing is the white oaks start dropping. If you find some white oaks, they'll eat that. And they'll prefer white oaks over the other two species. But when our post oaks start dropping, they'll walk around everything to get to a post oak, but every area is different. But if you're on some hot deer sign and it drops, I guarantee you, that's what happened. You've got another set of species of oaks that are raining down somewhere. You have to always know what they like. And it takes time, because every year, just because one year that you have a good stand of white oaks that are dropping doesn't necessarily mean the next year they're going to have acorns. That's why you scout. That's why you have multiple stands. That's why you need to know your species of oak trees to know what you have, what you got. There's so much information out there to figure out the different species and learn. I was lucky enough to go through forestry school that helped me out a lot, and I was lucky enough to have a granddad who hunted and understood that to teach me that even when I was a little kid. Here's a great example of that tip. I've got a water oak behind me, and this water oak has been dropping since the second week of October, and here it is near the end of November, and it is just covered on the ground with water oak acorns. But there's not a deer track, not any deer sign. This species, the deer don't prefer it. If we didn't have any other acorns, the deer would be here, but that lets me know I've got white oaks dropping somewhere. I've got post oaks dropping somewhere. If you got this much food on the ground at such a big tree, and there's not any deer sign around here, there's not any rubs around here, there's not any fresh droppings around here, the deer are somewhere else. Just because you see acorns, just because acorns on the ground, doesn't mean the deer are going to be there. If you see spots like this, when there's food and not any deer sign, the deer are somewhere else. Here's another good tip I want to share with you. If you like hunting in the oaks and the hardwoods, what I've done here on this ground right here, this is only about 7 acres of straight hardwood, mostly all oak. And every year for the past 9 years, I've ran a controlled burn through here. You can see how clean the understory is. And this is here in East Texas, here in the south, where we have a lot of brush. I've got a fire lane around it, and I burn it off late winter, early spring, before the spring green up. You pick a day where the humidity is low, you've got light winds, you can get a good hot fire that burns it and cleans everything off. I do that to keep the trees healthy. You get that free fertilizer, and what comes back is here in the south, that's American beautyberry that you see behind me. I've got acres and acres and acres of American beautyberry. The deer don't really eat the berries. They love the leaves, they're tender. They love the twigs, they're really tender. This American beautyberry comes up and gets mature late summer. Deer hang out here all the time. And this spot here, just because it's only about 6 or 7 acres, I seldom, if ever hunt in here. 2 or 3 different kind of species of oak in here. Every year something's gonna have acorns. I hunt the edges. I never come in here and hunt, but just a really, really great idea. Do your research. If you want to do a controlled burn, doing controlled burn in a hardwood stand, it's pretty cool.
Coming up, host Matt Moore shares one of his best-kept scouting secrets. More information to help you hunt acorns when we return. Closing the Distance will be right back.
The 3 biggest mistakes in shot placement today. Bow hunters are unintentionally making errors while taking aim. We studied these problems and identified the solutions to these challenges. We are pleased to share this information with you. Available to you free of charge. Shot Placement 101 is a DVD that answers these important questions. Just log on to closingthedistance.com to see how to order. That's closingthedistance.com.
It's simple. Learning stand placement drastically increases your odds, but hunters are unintentionally making errors while scouting and hanging stands. We examined these problems and found the solutions to these hunting challenges, and we're pleased to share this information with you. Stand placement is a new DVD that answers these questions. Available online only at closingthedistance.com. That's closingthedistance.com. Order your copy today and learn the secrets of consistently harvesting trophy bucks.
Here's another tip to help you find those acorns that are on the hardwood trees. I'm here in my yard. We've got 3 post oak trees that are here behind me that you see. 2 of the big ones, they're the same size, basically the same age. They get the same amount of rainfall, the same amount of fertilizer, but even them being so close together, the one that's still green behind me, the leaves are still on. They haven't even started to change colors yet. And here it is at the end of November. It's loaded. Then you've got the one right here next to me. The leaves are already turning brown. They're starting to fall off. There's acorns on the one right here behind me, but it's not any comparison to how loaded the one is that's still green. This is not 100% of the time, but in so many cases, when you're in the woods scouting, look for those trees that are still green with leaves. Look for those trees that are still holding on to their leaves. A lot of times when you see those oak trees that are like that, they still have acorns on them. I don't understand it. My granddad told me that a long time ago when we were scouting. Told me that's what to look for. And he's right. So many times you'll see those trees like that that are still green with leaves, and they're just loaded with acorns, compared to one just right here by it, already turning brown, already starting to drop leaves on the ground. Check those ones out. It'll help you sometimes when you're having to do some speed scouting. Pretty good tip.
This is a stand of live oaks. Were planted about 15 years ago. You can see there's several different sizes. There's a pretty big one here and some smaller ones. Actually, I got some pear planted in here for summer food. But these live oaks supply a lot of acorns in the fall. And this was an old field that I used to farm. I used to have peas and watermelons up here. I planted pines back up on the upper for cover, and I planted this little area for a little, actually a tree food plot. And it's worked so far. My grandson killed his first buck out from under these live oaks. So I guess I'm successful in my terms anyway. These trees are good bearers. And what some of you might not know about live oak trees, even though they're all the same species, different trees produce acorns at different times. This tree will drop its acorns in October. These other trees will drop their acorns in November and December. So you've got a kind of a continuous supply of fresh acorns here for the deer. You see, I got a ground blind set up over here, and I've got fruit trees in between for summer food. I got a protein feeder here for summer food. And so I keep the deer coming into this area, even though there's not acorns on the ground. I do have food for them here all the time. I've got plowed ground out here where I'm going to plant peas and summer crops. So, you know, we provide a continuous supply of food in this area for the deer. So they come all year round.
Finding a good seed source to plant oak trees is pretty simple. Most all nurseries are going to have a good stock, a good variety for you to choose from. If you're trying to get out a little cheaper, look at mall parking lots, Home Depots, Lowe's, Walmarts, church parking lots, funeral homes, cemeteries, any place that manicures and waters and fertilizes the oak trees that are around the buildings. These trees are perfect to pick up acorns to plant, to have your own cheap seed source.
Okay, if you want to grow some of your own plants to plant in your hunting areas, I like to pick a species that drops acorns early or late, depending on if you're a bow hunter, if you're a late season gun hunter. These particular young seedlings here are chinkapin, and they're native here to East Texas. I harvested the nuts this past October, and I put them in little cups, and I sprout them, and I transfer them to bigger pots, keep them about a year, and then I transplant them back into the field. And so that way I can put that species where I want it to be, maybe around a bow stand that I like to hunt. Also, I go to shopping malls and Lowe's and Walmart parking lots and gather acorns there from species they have like live oak and the Shumard variety. These are Shumards that I've got soaking in water waiting on them to sprout. As soon as they break open and sprout, I'll transfer them into a smaller cup and get them started. And I've got trees now that are 20 feet tall in the woods that have been harvested that are growing from acorns harvested at Walmarts and Lowe's. Makes you a good way to get you some trees started on your place without a lot of expense.
I'm standing in a 33-acre clear cut here in East Texas. It's a cold morning. Ducks are flying down here in this bottom. What's going on? It's a reforestation job, a planting job down here in this bottom, and the landowner's going back with all hardwoods. Cherry bark oak and water oak, which are two perfect species here in the south that can handle this wet bottomland condition. If you have to plant a big tract after a logging job, always hire a forester and buy your seedlings from a big major seed source, a big company that handles big volumes, because you can get the seedlings a lot cheaper. When you're buying seedlings by the thousand, expect to pay $250, $300, or maybe $400 per thousand, which is really, really inexpensive. And always check the seed source. If you're from the north, don't buy seedlings here in the south, and vice versa. I guarantee you that'll help you, especially in areas like this that stays wet. Find a forester, get their recommendations. There's foresters in every state, every county. If you don't have a good forester, hire me, I'll help you. Hardwoods, they're our future. Perfect for deer, perfect for turkeys, and even down here in this bottom like this, ducks even have a benefit. Great show today. Let's check in with Brother Mark.
On today's episode, we're talking about key insights in order to be successful. And the truth is, I don't know anybody who hunts that doesn't want to go to the field and be successful. We're all looking for that edge that can help us maybe get that encounter at the shot of a buck of a lifetime. But you know, the same is true in life, man. I don't know anybody that doesn't want to be successful in life, whether it's being a successful husband to their wife, or maybe a successful mother, or a successful father, or successful in their career. But you know what one of the key insights is to being successful in life? It's to first be successful in your spiritual life. The Bible says in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 33 that when you seek God first, then He gives you all these other things that you need. The real key to a successful life is to first be successful in our connection and our relationship with God, because He really does love us and He really does want to bless our lives. And it doesn't matter what else we're successful in if we're not successful in our connection with God. If you'd like to know more about a personal relationship with God through His Son Jesus Christ, just go to closingthedistance.com and click on the Moment of Truth tab.